It's Will.
And James. This is our recap for Amazing Race 35, Episode 3, No Sleep and $1 Million Dream. I'm so excited to talk about this episode because I know there's only been 3 this season, but this was like what the Amazing Race is all about, was all in this episode. And I'm really excited to be joined by 2 babes in black. LP Bunny from season 26 and Miss Michelle from season 34. Hi, ladies.
Hello.
Hi, baby.
So excited to have you guys join us for this recap. But how are you both doing?
Good. I'm doing great. I'm actually excited to be part of this recap. We're recapping the show as well, but since we had a guest,
you are.
we didn't really get to talk about the other teams. We mostly focused on Lena, so I'm excited to be here today.
And you also ate bugs on your last recap as well, which if you guys haven't watched the latest Croquetta chat, you need to do that because Lewis and Michelle go to town on some bugs.
Yeah, we challenged each other, and I told Lewis, you know what? If you want to be an all-star team one day, you gotta eat the bugs.
You are an all-star team. What are you talking about? One day, hello, icon.
Well, Lewis is in the chat.
Hey,
Yeah.
Lewis.
He's sad. Where is he? Did you lock him in a closet or something?
Yeah, he beat me bug eating, so I'm mad at him right now.
Oh, okay.
No, he's
Laura,
at the
how are
station.
you?
He's at the station.
He's working.
He's working.
He's a working daddy.
Hey,
Daddy. And how are you doing, Laura?
I'm great. I am so excited to chat about this episode because it gave me all the feels the whole entire time I was watching it with my bestie and her fiance and their baby. And so I was teaching them all about the Amazing Race. Oh, the baby is so cute.
This is like the Amazing Race. Like this is what the show has been for so long, and I feel like we've been missing it. Even like with some of the pre-COVID seasons, I just feel like we've missed the airport drama. We've missed the interactions with the travel agent. So it feels very old school Amazing Race, and I'm so happy that it's back.
I have a question.
I'm sorry, guys. You guys did not have that at all in our season. We were in the charter plane, relaxing in our nice little seats.
Okay, y'all didn't run the Amazing Race. You ran the good race.
Okay, let's talk about this, Laura. Were you in the car reading a map and driving around everywhere, every single leg?
We drove around a lot, and in fact, we were such bad drivers our season that they actually had to hire us drivers because no one knew how to drive a stick shift. We all lied.
Oh my gosh.
We all lied.
Sorry, I interrupted you, but
you're fine, baby. So I have a question for you, Michelle. Just because you were 34 and this is 35, what is it like watching the first season since running the race? Because I know for James and I, and I'm sure for Laura too, it was like kind of weird to watch a new season happen after ours aired.
I'm very obsessed with this season, and I'm kind of a little upset because I wanted to do the airport. I wanted to be in the regular season of Amazing Race because Lewis and I have always been fans, and I think we would have thrived, which I always tell him this. And he tells me that we still did really good, but I still think a lot of teams in our season would have fallen down with being more exhausted, going through the airport. And I love watching the season. All the teams are incredible. I love the diversity. And it feels good. But now I feel a little bad because now we're old news.
Hey, but once a fan, always a fan, you know? Like, it's fun to always be a fan and back on the couch watching it from the comfort of our home.
Yes.
Even though there's a little bit of this FOMO of like, I could literally do the Amazing Race every month. Like, call me up. Like, I could just do it over and over. And we're crazy like that, I guess.
Do you guys yell at the TV too? And tell people what to do.
Yeah.
It was so funny. Lewis was sitting in the seat, and he was like to Morgan and Lena. Wait, is it Morgan?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. He was like, use the express pass already. If you're gonna do it, do it now.
I think that was so stupid to use the express pass. Sorry, I love them. They're queens, but you just wasted your express pass.
Yeah. I was frustrated.
Yeah,
I was frustrated with
there.
their decision, but we'll unpack that for sure. Well, let's talk about episode 3, No Sleep and $1 Million Dream. At the start of this leg, teams were instructed to fly to Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam. And once there, they had to travel by bus to Con To in the heart of the Mekong Delta and choose one of 3 boat departure times for the morning, where they would then receive their next clue. And we see Jocelyn and Victor leaving in first at 5:24 a.m. Of course, they're feeling good about being back-to-back first place finishes in the race so far. But just to give some context in terms of like this spacing with the teams this leg, Jocelyn and Victor left at 5:24 a.m. and Robin and Chelsea, who are in the back of the pack, left at 9:08 a.m. So that's like 3.5 hours after Jocelyn and Victor, which is crazy. I mean, on our season, I feel like teams were typically like 15, 20 minutes apart, maybe at the max 30, unless you were Haley and Kaylin. Love those girls, but they were usually an hour or 2 behind everybody. But like 3 hours, I think that's a lot of time to catch up. But thankfully, there was this travel agency segment. Right off starting this leg, what are you guys thinking with these teams, these placements? Who are some standouts to you already?
I mean, for me, I love Rob and Corey together. I think they have a beautiful dynamic. They get along really well, great communication. And then we see from Corey this episode that he's even traveled a lot before backpacking. So every episode I get to know a little bit more about them and I'm more obsessed about them. I really enjoy this team and this is the team that I'm rooting for. And they've been in my top since the beginning. So they're the ones that I really like.
Great choice. What about you, Laura?
Okay, so I love my little cute boy and his dad. They are just, I mean, I do. He is so stinking cute and so sweet. And I can't wait to meet him and flirt with him in person.
I mean, Rob and Corey, jumping ahead with this leg too, they are probably one of the only teams that have felt the most consistent in terms of their placement. And they're just working really well together as a team. And I feel like they have all the ingredients to be a successful team on The Amazing Race. And they're just having fun with each other. And I think that's really the most important thing, in my opinion, in terms of succeeding on the race, is having fun. Even though it's stressful as hell, having fun and taking those times to really appreciate it are very important. Will, what is the team that's sticking out to you? Is it also Rob and Corey?
Yes, but I'm trying to think. I just love teams that are excited, have high energy, and like don't go flip-floppy on their decisions or how they're kind of running. They like do something and they commit to it, and then they're like, okay, whatever, it's great. It is Rob and Corey for sure, just because I think their energy is so high and I think they're having a great time, which is infectious for us as viewers. But let me just say, I love Robin and Chelsea because her energy is my energy.
I know, when we were watching that.
I'm not here to make besties.
I was like, that is Will. That is Will.
Really? That's so funny. I don't feel like that's you. And when she said that, I was kind of like disappointed that she said that.
Oh, I love it. Oh,
no, I didn't. I didn't.
I think you are able to separate like race mode and then down mode. Like, our cast was incredibly close the entire season, but when it was race mode, you didn't give 2 shits about really like where other teams were, like how they were doing. Like, you really just focus on yourself. So like, I understood where Robin was coming from, but I laughed because even on our season, Will was like, this isn't the Amazing Race, Amazing Best Friend race. Yeah. And like, there's some truth to that.
It is.
You know, like,
it's like the separation of like, I'll be your friend when we're not racing, but the second that we're racing, I just want to get through the day, and whatever happens to you is not my problem.
Yeah, but I kind of felt like she's probably like that always. Like,
yeah,
I don't see her going on trips with the Amazing Race people.
It's the beginning of the season. What episode is this? Number 2,
3?
3? Yeah. And she's already upset while they're at the airport. I mean, again, we don't know how long they've been at the airport or if she's over it for a second. The way we were really close to everyone, and it was so funny because Lewis would be straight up. He would tell, like, we were in a challenge with Derek, and he's like, all right, Derek, we got here together, but if I'm done, I'm leaving your ass. I don't give a So he was like straight up about it, but I mean, all fun and games.
Well, and on the flip side, though, the race is a relationship race. And so it is sometimes in your benefit to kind of maybe kiss ass with the other teams too, especially with this looming U-turn that hasn't happened yet this season and not knowing what the twist is with it. Like, you don't want to make enemies of other teams because there is a social element at play when there's like advantages like the U-turn.
Yeah, or
there.
even if you're in the middle of a challenge and for some reason you're frustrated and you can't get it, you could talk to someone and try and help them or help yourself out knowing someone, and they're not going to help you if they don't like you. I mean, you should be able to do it by yourself, but in certain circumstances.
Oh my God, there were so many times where I was like, hey, let's answer. Like, seriously, because if they're gonna give it to me, like let's go. We're racing for $1 million. That, you know, like, you do whatever you need to do here.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed. Well, like I said, Old School Amazing Race is back. All the teams are now having to book their flight to Vietnam. So we get a lot of interactions at the travel agency. I was loving this, especially when you find out there is an earlier flight time that Joe and Ian and Joel and Garrett, who left towards the back of the pack, were able to get onto, while all these other teams who are ahead of them are like, oh my God, our flight's not till 7:55. We're going to be 6 hours behind all the other teams. I'm just so curious. And I know with editing, but as a viewer, I'm like, did none of these teams like ask or like push or like do research of their own? I mean, I think Anna Lee is the only one I saw with the phone looking at it and like trying to figure things out. So I don't know. I just thought it was so interesting that no one else found out about the 150 flight.
I guess my question to you guys is, what would you guys do in the travel agency when you did have to go there? Did you guys have to do that, or?
I did, yeah.
We did on our season one time, but
they were already pre-booked,
prearranged.
So yeah,
that's what I was there was just 2 flights, and you just chose which one, and you couldn't go outside of those 2. Yeah. I think there's like 2 pieces of it though. Like, if Joe and Ian found this flight and they were the only ones, I would be a little hesitant to do it, just because if I'm not with other teams, that makes me more nervous. Mm-hmm. But if I then saw Joel and Garrett be like, oh yeah, we're going to get it too, then I would feel more comfortable. But I would use every resource to my advantage in that situation: a phone, a computer, every single travel agent to find the best option. I wouldn't go in there and be like, I'll take what they had. I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
I was really shocked by that when they were like, okay, it's, you know, the later flight. Everyone's like, okay, we'll get on that. I'm like, no. You ask, you look at a phone, you take the initiative, because regardless of the travel agents, they're not racing for $1 million. You are. So you do whatever you can possibly do to try and get on an earlier flight.
I'm very curious, because I know Anna Lee and I know she's a great traveler. She travels all over the place and she actually makes trips. So as James said, she was going through the phone. So I'm wondering why she didn't see that flight, because she got on the later flight. Yeah. Did it open up maybe?
That's what I'm thinking. Is like,
did someone cancel?
Yeah, the seats must have been released to the general public because maybe someone canceled their flight and then just things became available. But also, like, I think a lot of fans, when they watch the show, don't realize you're not booking just for you and your teammate. You have to book at least 4 tickets for your audio and camera guy too. So that means that all of a sudden 8 tickets were available for this 150 flight.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, I do love that Joe and Ian and Joel and Garrett were very like cards close, especially because there were other teams there who were booking the 7:55 flight. And as Joel and Garrett and Joe and Ian are leaving, they're like, yeah, see you on the flight, but like not saying anything. It was brilliant. I thought that was
How about
smart.
Joel and Garrett walking over to the travel agency while everyone's driving there and they end up getting the best flight? That's just funny. Sometimes in the race, it's the luck of the draw in the moment.
For sure.
I also think, like, because that kind of happened to us a couple times. I think that's sometimes you're in this like warp tunnel and you're not always thinking clearly. And I wonder if, as Annalise was looking at the phone, maybe she didn't even fully see those flights. I mean, because that is weird that she didn't book them.
Well, I think sometimes travel agents may like not let you have it, or even like the front desk of an airport, if the time to like get to the airport, get on the flight is so small, which I think could be what happened. Is like, oh, we don't want to give this to you because you saw Ian and Joe and Ian, the travel agent being like, can you make it? Can you get to the airport in that time? So I feel like it was more of a, maybe it's too crunch of a time for them to get to the airport.
True. Well, we discovered that there were 3 flights. Obviously, the 1:45 flight, the 1:50, and the 7:55 flight. Now we see some airport drama. Again, old school Amazing Race. People are starting to realize, oh my God, there are earlier flights. Joe and Ian and Joel and Garrett got on the 1:50. Ashley's upset about this. Annalee's upset about this. So like, how did we not know there was an earlier flight? I love these interactions. But then to add on to this airport drama, we find out this first flight, the 1:45 p.m., gets delayed to 3 p.m. So they're delayed an hour and 15 minutes, which gives Joe and Ian and Joel and Garrett the lead. Their flight's going to be the first to depart Bangkok. Loved this. But I think also, maybe this is just from our race experience, I immediately looked at Will and I said, there's going to be an equalizer. There's no way they're going to show up in Vietnam and then there's just no way. So they get to Vietnam and they have to go to the boat dock where they have to pull departures. But first they have to go on these buses. I don't know about y'all, but I've never been on a bus like this.
Oh my God, I love it.
So comfortable. And I was like, I want to experience something like this. They get to sleep. It was a 5-hour bus ride. And I know Liam and Jeremy were like, we only slept for 2 hours. But in my head, I'm like, I think I would have slept perfectly in this bus because you actually get to lay flat on like an airplane.
That's so funny because I was thinking the same thing, that on the race, you sleep anywhere you can. So if you're on a flight, you sleep. And that bus, I mean, that is called
comfort.
Luxury. Luxury. You sleep.
Literally.
Yeah. So for me, I never got to experience the airport things, but I have been traveling a lot touring. So it was kind of the same thing. That's why I always say that I would thrive, because we would have 2 hours of sleep after a show, run to the airport, fall asleep on the floor, wake up to get on the flight. And that is definitely luxury.
Luxury. Ben in the chat asked, can they book multiple flights like back in the day? And as far as our season goes, we weren't allowed to book. Once, like if we were to book our own flight, once you book it, that's the flight you take. You can't rack up.
But you can go on standby if it doesn't have any additional cost, right?
Yeah, like we almost booked a flight to Rio instead of Torrijos in South America. Yeah, they thought I said to Rio instead of Torrijos, or whatever it's called. So we would have actually had to go to Rio and then fly back and be obviously eliminated. So once the flight is booked, you can't change it.
Ooh.
That's wild. Can you imagine if that happened?
No.
But that's not how it was in the early seasons. They could rack up as many flight tickets as they wanted. I remember them telling us that there were teams that would rack up $30,000 of airline tickets.
Yep.
And then I guess they were like, well, we can't do that because now
we can't afford this.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's not only 2 flights, it's 4. 4 tickets.
Insane.
So they get to the departure board where they find out there's 3 departure times, 5:45, 6 a.m., and 6:15. And I want to know what your theories are on what happened here with Annalee, because never in Amazing Race has this ever happened before, where they show up to the departure board and there just happens to be a 5:45 departure time in the final time slot. I would like to think that this is a fun little twist, almost like the equivalent of a hidden immunity idol on Survivor. Like, and it just, I think Annalee was the standout this episode for me because we're really getting where her head is at as a racer. And I don't feel like we're really getting that with the other teams yet. She's always forward thinking. She even says, I want to think about what the other teams aren't doing and then find out where I can take it one step further to get ahead. That's brilliant. That should be the mindset of an Amazing Racer. And because of her taking that forward thinking, she went through, I don't even know what compelled her to look through there and found a 5:45 a.m. departure. I thought it was amazing. And I hope this is a fun little twist moving forward, just because it kind of rewards the smarter racers, in my opinion. What do you guys think happened here?
I mean, I think that these are the best producers in television, honestly. Like Bertram, Elise, all of them are so smart. I think that it was probably placed there because you are going to think, oh, it was a mess up. I don't think so. I think that they definitely had it planned, and it really did showcase the strategy of different teams by looking in all of them rather than just looking in your own time slot.
Mm-hmm.
I personally thought it was a mistake, but what you said, these producers are insane. They're so smart that it possibly couldn't have been. But I got to give credit to Annalie where it's due.
Yeah.
She did go through them. It wasn't like she randomly picked it up.
Right. She the forward thought, like, let me just.
But then again, she also didn't have other time slots to pick from. Another thing that I have noticed on this race too, which I'm not sure if it's going to continue happening, but I've noticed that there's extra clues inside of the boxes. So when someone has been last place, there has been extra clues. Yeah. And on our season, we used to look in there to see what place we were in at the moment.
I
wonder if they did that for suspense.
That might be done purposely too, so you don't know that you're last.
Exactly. They've done that before for sure, where I think they did that even on our season so that I think that it can mess with you in different ways. That if you're last, it kind of gives you a sense of comfort, or maybe you don't hustle as much. But I think there's definitely strategies behind that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed. Also, shout out to Todd and Ashley who are in the chat. Hey, y'all. So our departure times, 5:45 a.m. We have Joe and Ian, Joel and Garrett, Rob and Corey, Steve and Annalie. 6 a.m. we have Jocelyn and Victor, Morgan and Lena, Greg and John, Todd and Ashley. And then our 6:15 a.m. departure time, Liam and Jeremy, Andrea, Melina, and Chelsea and Robin. When they wake up the next morning, they get route info where they have to board a sampan and had to deliver baskets of fruit, dragon fruit, tangerines, and golden melons to 3 marked boats. With each delivery, teams received a third of a photograph that, when all combined, would reveal the location of their next clue, which is Pier 20. I loved this task because of how chaotic it felt, and really seeing the teams and how they were thinking of like, well, there's already 2 boats here. Do we wait, or do we just go to the next fruit vendor and then try to check off one of the fruit deliveries on our list? What did y'all think about this task?
I loved it, mainly because because only 2 boats could be on each side of the deliveries. It caused, regardless of your time when you were released, it allowed teams to like mix up. It allowed everybody to kind of fall behind or get ahead depending on how fast their boat was, or if they were able to find certain things. So it really just jumbled everything up. And that's where you see people struggle, where you see people freak out, where you see who can actually like handle the stress of what they're being put through. So I loved it a lot.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah, just seeing teams all together at one place is a marvelous thing on the race. Just because you, like Will said, you start to see their different personalities come out, and the stress, because you start seeing that a team is doing good or bad, and it really brings out the stress in you.
Yeah, I have to say there was something about this episode. I think it maybe is because we went to Thailand. I mean, we didn't go to Vietnam, but it kind of gave me like a nostalgic feeling of the race. I don't know how else to describe it, but it felt like the amazing race. And again, because of COVID and everything, I feel like it's been a little different the past few years. And just this episode was so good.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think a prime example.
James, you're
muted, but I think a prime example of like a team struggling with that stress was Joe and Ian when they forgot to grab their third piece of their clue, and they were far ahead, and then that really put them back. So it's those little mistakes when you're in these types of scenarios where it's just like chaos, and you just try and rush through things when you stop thinking like you got to grab the clue.
What would you guys have done? Like, would you have grabbed the clue and given it to them, or would you have made
No,
absolutely
no.
not.
Absolutely not. I don't even care if it's a team that I like. No, you fucked up. That's your mistake. Excuse my language.
Whoa. So when Will and I are on winner's season, and if that happens, James, you're not going to give us the clue.
Laura, you think that's going to happen to us?
No, it wouldn't, but I'm saying if he did, I just want to know what James is going to do, because I would throw his ass over the boat if he didn't.
Oh, Lewis said he would have thrown himself in the water, swam to the guy, and gotten the clue.
Literally.
100%.
What are you guys doing?
I think there must have been a rule that you had to say for probably safety reasons, because I thought the same thing. I was like, get aggressive, jump into another boat, get up there and get the clue yourself. But I really don't think I would have been like, yeah, let me stop my task because of your mistake and give you your clue. I'm not going to do that. Sorry. Even if I liked you, I'm not going to do that, because
even if they were like 50-year-old moms and they like were doing it for their kids, I'm still not giving it to you. I'm sorry.
So I really like Joe and Ian's relationship because of how different they are. But one of them is so patient in how he responds to him. If Lewis were to respond to me in one way, I don't think I could handle it. And I love how I'm not sure which one's Joe or which one's Ian, but Ian, is it Ian that's really patient?
No, it's Joe, I think.
Oh, okay. I love the way he one bickers and he just answers, how do you want me to tell you this? And it's always so calm. And I'm like, I love that. I think they're going to do very well good together.
Yeah. And they're giving us good entertainment with those differences in their relationship, because they do have such opposites, especially how they react to it. That makes for a fun team, an entertaining team to watch.
The part where they were at the travel agency and Joe's like, let's just relax. And Ian's like, there's no time to relax. He's like, I don't actually mean like relax. I mean like.
Yes.
So let's break down Morgan and Lena's express pass decision. I mean, obviously we saw them at the beginning of this leg talking about how they have until the end of leg 4 to use it. So this is kind of creeping up to like the end of their express pass, but I still think they prematurely played this. And the reason being is it could be an edit, as much as people want to say, but like we heard them say as a viewer, we're using our express pass because you can only unload your fruit 2 boats at a time, and we want to stay ahead of the pack today. So it had nothing to do with like a slow boat driver. It had nothing to do with the task. It's just like, well, let's just get through it because we want to stay ahead of the pack. But my argument with that is you are with all of the other teams. You are in the middle departure group, the departure 2 from the dock. So you're still ahead of 3 other teams who haven't even started the task. I just felt like it was premature to use. And I think the race brain activated, and that's why they made that decision, because they were just a little impatient with the task. What do y'all think?
I agree. Well, we had Lena on our podcast and she said they ended up using it because of a slow driver. He wasn't really helping them go faster. He wasn't really taking initiative to do things. So personally, they were in the challenge and they already knew what they had to do. It was buckets and you're passing fruit. I know you had to wait for other boats, but this task wasn't hard. It was just, you would either go a little bit slower, but you don't know what the next task is going to be, next detour, next roadblock. This one was just so easy to do that I would have stayed and finished it off, even if I was a little bit more behind than I was.
Because it's a task you are in control of. It's very straightforward. It's tossing fruit off a boat to the other boat vendor and then get a clue. Will, Laura, what do you guys think?
Will, you go first, babe.
Okay. I it's easy to say and look at the episode and be like, they shouldn't have used it. If I was in that situation, I don't know what I would do, because if I saw every team in the water with all these fruit and I couldn't get to a boat to release my fruit to the vendor, I think I would start freaking out and maybe think about using it. But on the flip side of that, as long as I knew there were teams around me and I could potentially beat at least one, I would save it so that when I got to the next challenge, because there's going to be another one. And usually in race history, roadblocks and detours are harder than the blue route info task that you have to do. So I would have tried to save it for that. But if I was that stressed and like had that many things going against me to release those fruit, I don't know, maybe I would have used it.
I mean, that's one of the things that you have to remember as a racer, and this is for future racers, is the times that you are stressed and you start to panic and worry, you really have to take that step back and really look at the picture just for 1 second. Take 5 seconds to see what's happening, because when you're stressed, you can make decisions that are just bad for no reason.
Yeah, I mean, like Greg and John, their driver was super slow too. I don't think that anyone had a driver that was just like speeding through it. And yeah, it was super premature. And honestly, I hate to say it, but it was a very amateur move to use it then. Like, that the next part is going to probably be harder. And if they had used it then, I guarantee you they probably would have gone first or second.
Yeah, and that's why I think that's why I want to use the word premature, because I don't necessarily think it was a waste, because the point of the express pass is to just express through a task. So it's not necessarily a waste because it helped them. They skipped the task. It would be a waste if they were to be eliminated next episode, because it looks like in the preview for next week, Lena's struggling at a roadblock. And that's why the express pass is there. It's for those specific tasks where you can't do it. That's when you make up time, not a task where you're like, I just don't want to wait around. I don't want to wait for other teams to complete it.
You guys,
that's not what the express pass is for.
So easy. It just was like, you take the fruit and you give it. I mean, like, there are challenges that are really hard on the race. I mean, we all know that. This one is not one of those. It was a cool challenge. It was not a hard challenge.
Well, like another example, like Joe and Ian, obviously they forgot their clue. And as much as they waited for a second to be like, let's get our clue. And then they said, you know what, let's go do the dragon fruit and then we'll circle back. They're always in motion. It just looked like Morgan and Lena showed up to the first boat and they're like, we don't want to wait. Here's the express pass. Let's go. Yeah. Where they could have just tried to go to a different fruit vendor. Again, not a waste. It did what it was supposed to do. It just was.
Yeah, they weren't last. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So going into this detour, another task that I loved, it felt very hard. And this leg's detour, it was a choice between paper or plastic, and paper teams had to make 12 sheets of edible rice paper in order to receive their next clue. And then in plastic, teams had to cut, apply, heat, and smooth vinyl into a motorcycle piece in order to receive their next clue. What did y'all think about these detours? Because I thought they were both difficult and it was fun to watch.
Yeah.
It's so funny because, as I said, I watched the episode with my best friend and her fiance, and I was like, oh yeah, they're not going to get the clue. That rice paper, those look real bad. Those are real janky. And then they got the clue and I was like,
yeah.
How in the world did they get it? That was the only thing with that one, is that I was like, I thought it was going to be harder because we had to make bricks in, oh my God, where were we? Peru. And they were so picky with the bricks. And I thought that it was going to be like that, where, they were going to like rip them apart or do whatever. And they were just like, here you go. I'm like, what?
That's a good observation, because it's like almost the equivalent of the vinyl task. I'm like, oh, there's a bubble here. You have to redo it. Yeah. That's actually a good point. Michelle, what did you think of the detours?
Oh, they look so hard. Lewis was the one that would make quick decisions in between him and I. So when he saw that there was vinyl, automatically he said no, because vinyl is very hard. It has a lot of bubbles. It seems easier than what it is, but it's not. I wouldn't have wanted to do a cooking challenge. I just don't like to cook. So I would have probably pushed for vinyl, but he makes the decision. So we would have gone to rice paper. I loved it. I thought it was great. I loved that Joel and Garrett, right? Mm-hmm. That one of them used to do crepes.
Yeah.
It's so cute. He's like, they used to call me Pierre because I do crepes. I'm not gonna lie, I thought they were gonna take over the challenge because of that. Right. But it was very interesting to watch. And another thing that Lewis and I would do is we would not try to make things perfect. We would try and do the task, let's say the rice paper, and then see how they judged us. Because in some challenges, judges are stricter than others.
Mhm.
Right.
And that happened to us when Lewis was building the cart together. He did it as quick and as efficient as he could. And as we left, we got the yes, and it fell apart, but we still got the yes, and we could take the cart with us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think with some tasks, I think more so like performance tasks, even if you don't have like the moves like down like pat or like
Mhm.
the lyrics, if you're singing a song down to like a T, as long as you're performing it and selling it, that's usually when the judge is like, yes. So
Mhm.
yeah, the judges can be a little bit lenient, I feel like, in terms of giving the next clue.
Yeah, and some of them made extra rice papers. Would you guys have done that?
Brilliant, so smart. I thought that was like really great. That
Mhm.
was, yeah. I don't know if well, do you think we would have done that? I don't think I would have been that
I don't think I would have
forward-thinking.
done that.
I don't think I would have, just because of time. But to be honest, it seemed as though each rice paper took maybe a max of like a minute, maybe a little over a minute to make, to like pour, cook, pull it from the thing. So if it was that short, maybe we would have. But I think for this one, it was just as long as your rice papers weren't ripped at all, because the edges of those circles were like
Janky.
so bad. They were so
Laura
bad.
would have not been the best judge for that. We would have hated her.
But I when I watched it, I was like trying to think of what James and I would have chosen, and to be honest, I feel like I don't know. Reading that, I don't know if I would have been or had enough foresight to think of vinyl being hard to do, or the rice paper being harder. I think we would have been stumped and just chosen one.
I think we would have done the rice papers because it's why we chose the Detour and the Amazon on our season was cooking, because we're more comfortable being like in that space of cooking, and also having someone watch and like someone demonstrating how to do it, like to me that's usually more helpful than just like showing up to the task and like figure it out.
Well,
so like
the
I
vinyl
think rice
had
papers-
they had a
yeah,
demo.
vinyl had demonstration too.
but I feel like it's not like as like
It's not start
the
to finish.
Yeah, I feel like the
Yeah.
cooking thing, like they're constantly doing the same thing
Yeah.
over and over
It's
and
more
over.
it's more of a step 1, step 2, step 3, and
Exactly.
completion,
That's what
and
I
then you
mean.
just repeat. It's very monotonous task, whereas the vinyl, I think you had to be a little more patient and figure it out as you go.
Yeah. Well, for the fans and the viewers as well, it's very easy to see from home which tasks to do because you're getting a visual presentation rather than reading it on a clue, and you're trying to pick the easiest and fastest one that you can. So, I mean, sometimes you make a lot of mistakes going back and forth on that.
Especially because you get the additional info and like just that little slip, you think you know what the additional info and all the steps that go into it. You're like, well, maybe that's not the right choice. So like the clue can be a little deceiving. Let's talk about Andrea and Melina. They showed up to this detour. Obviously, all the stations for rice paper were taken. So they kind of were left with this dilemma of like, do we wait or do we switch detours? I mean, obviously they made the right choice in staying because a gamble of switching detours can always be hit or miss. What do y'all think you would have done if you were in their shoes? Would you have waited, or do you think you would have ended up switching detours?
Oh, I would have 100% waited, because you have to go, you have to find somewhere else. What if it's harder? What if you run into the same thing? Like you always stay. And I wouldn't trade detours.
I think it just depends. I think they made the right choice because they thought this is our strength to cook. I loved and I'm obsessed that all they were doing was watching the demonstration over and over. So by the time they actually started the task, they knew exactly what to do. And already being there, knowing this is more of your strength, you could watch what other teams are doing and who's getting what wrong and be able to fix that on your own. So I think they made a great decision. Would I have done it? I'm not sure.
Yeah, mainly because it force them to watch. If you get there and you're like, go, 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 you're going to watch, but you might miss something. But if you have, if they force you to wait, you are watching it with every detail and seeing it multiple times. And then I think it would be so much easier, as we saw, because they did so good, of doing the rice paper and then seeing everybody else's mistakes. So I think it was a smart decision. But again, like Michelle said, I don't know what I would have done, because there's no telling how long people may have taken, and you can't see the other task and if people are, blowing through it.
Yeah, I wonder also too, they asked like any of the teams there if they were able to see like if they were close to being done making 12, because if they were like 1 or 2 away from making their rice papers, maybe that would have been a factor too of like, oh, they're almost done, because I can see that they have 10 made.
Yeah.
But obviously they made the right choice in staying, because one of the stations ended up opening up. But then on the flip side with the vinyl detour, I loved how it was Joe and Ian and Lena and Morgan, after their first check, when they ended up switching the color of the vinyl, thinking that that would help in terms of like the bubbles not being as noticeable, or like the white of the actual piece of the motorcycle coming through. I love how in it these teams seem to be this season, because they're always trying to think of like, how can I perfect?
Outside
how can I be
box.
better? Rather than letting a no from a judge be like, getting them down.
Well, they're real fans of the race. And that's what you're seeing here is like, you're not seeing people that are just like, oh, I want to go race around the world. You're seeing people that have studied the show and know what it takes to get through a detour and a roadblock.
Yeah. We're on the flip
I thought
side.
it was funny though, but they flipped colors, didn't they? Like, I think one had blue, one had orange, and then they both thought that it would be better to use the other color.
Yeah, that's a good observation. I didn't notice that, but you're right. They did end up switching what the other team's colors were. But then on the flip side with Jocelyn and Victor, I mean, this is when I think the sleep deprivation starts to kick in. As we know, they've been racing all night. They were on a bus. They flew from Bangkok. There's just a lot of things happening. She was cracking under pressure. Like, this was an aside. We saw Jocelyn and Victor the first 2 legs, because they were on top of the world. They were running the race. And here they are at the bottom. And the moment like Greg and John get out of the paper task, Jocelyn seemed so defeated and ready to kind of give up. So I just thought that was to me, sleep deprivation at its finest, because that wasn't a side we've seen of them yet.
But I think it's a feeling that all of us can like
relate to.
Yeah, or just I can empathize, because I remember that feeling, and as a viewer, you watch it and you're like, it's just this. It's so easy. Just do it. But when you're in the moment, like, you really can't get out of it. You can't get out of your head. You can't get out of your own way. You don't know what to do. You can't ask anybody for help. You're just kind of like, I don't know, defeated. And I remember that one time for us on the race, and like
with the trucks. Yeah.
I just remember that it was an awful feeling. It's an awful, awful feeling. So I get it. And I think for them, one of the things that I always think is, if you do well in the first couple of legs of the race, you don't allow yourself to learn like the simple mistakes, and then you start making simple mistakes because you don't get those like lessons early on, like most of these teams have, of switching detours or bad taxis or bad directions. They haven't had that because they've just been running so well. And now they're getting it. And it's harder now because all the other teams have learned from those mistakes and are way more competitive than they were in the first 2.
Yeah.
That's a really smart observation, because I'll blame Tyler, because that's really what happened. Tyler left her passport. I'm not going to be nice anymore. Tyler left her passport in that car. And like, that was such an amateur mistake, but this was the 4th leg of the race, and we had been performing so well that I guess that is a really good point, that when you almost get like a little cocky.
Yeah. When you're in the back of the pack and you start to survive that, you get like some ammunition in you to just keep pushing forward and forward. So I could imagine being up there and then slowly kind of going down.
Yeah.
Oh, well, they kind of tumbled all the way down right now. I love them. I feel so bad.
But that's why I love like, to me, I think the challenge that made this episode was the fruit. I think passing the fruit is what made this episode so chaotic. I think it forced teams to like be way under pressure than I think they have in the past couple episodes. And you saw it at the very end with the placements of the teams were wild. From the first and second episode, it was completely flipped with Jocelyn and them at whatever 10th place. And like, what's the man's name? Annalie and what's her dad?
Steve.
Now they're in first. Like, it's just like a huge shift in the game, which I love because it makes it more interesting.
It shakes it up a little bit. Yeah, after this detour, they got their clue to check in at the Pitstop, which is a monastery nearby. I thought it was really interesting that it's only like 10 years old. It looks absolutely beautiful. And the placements for this leg were Steve and Annalie, Joel and Garrett, Rob and Corey, Todd and Ashley in 4th place, Robin and Chelsea, Morgan and Lena. I loved their facial reactions. Joe and Ian, Greg and John, Andrea and Melina, 10th place, Jocelyn and Victor, and last place, Jeremy and Liam. So this brings us to, I would like to say, a little debate. I'm very curious as former racers what we all think, but I can't help but feel like this is technically a non-elimination leg.
It is.
I don't think
I don't either. I don't think it is a non-elimination. I think that they're just still racing. It's a long.
I think one of the things that sticks in my head is if we think about like a non-elimination leg, you check in the pit stop, you go to a hotel, you sleep. And I think the difference in this is a keep on racing is that you get your clue and you keep going. That's what the difference is to me. If the race wants to eliminate somebody at a keep on racing, fine. They did that on our season episode 1. But if they don't want to, I think that's also okay. But to me, it's not a non-elimination.
Yeah, I see that point.
A non-elimination is when you go to bed and you sleep.
I agree.
But it's a mega leg then.
Yeah.
That's a mega
Unless you want to consider a mega leg 2 detours, 2 roadblocks.
Yeah.
But we never saw Phil. Like the way I think about it is the moment that you see Phil, that's the end of that leg.
Yeah. I want to go back to the history really quick because I'm just a nerd like this. No, let's go back to like where this all originated. So because I didn't know this. I just thought this was really interesting. So double length legs originated during season 6. So this is way back in the earlier seasons. And the 6th leg on that season, they were in Hungary. And it was initially planned to be 2 separate legs in the country, with the first leg of this being a non-elimination. However, producers later discovered during the race that begging is considered illegal in Hungary, which would have made it nearly impossible for the last place team to acquire money. Because remember, back in the earlier days, you get a penalty for getting last and they take all your money. And then in turn, teams had to rely on the kindness of locals to give them money to help, or the teams. So that's when, at that time, it was called a super leg. So rather than meeting Phil at a pit stop, it was a route info that said, keep on racing. So to me, that was kind of like the origin of the keep on racing leg. But also historically, when you check into a pit stop, that marks the end of a leg. Whether it's keep on racing or not, that means the leg is done. My other argument is with Annalie and Steve, when they open the clue in this episode, Annalie says, make your way to this cafe. You have 7,500 Vietnamese dong for this leg.
Yes.
So it's the start of a new leg. The only difference with keep on racing is there's no rest period. So in my mind, if you're going to really emphasize the no non-elimination legs, I feel like based on that, Jeremy and Liam, as much as I love them, should have been eliminated. And my only argument with that is because it happened to Nathan and Cody on our season. And historically before that, in a keep on racing leg, teams aren't eliminated. So all of a sudden, now it's not happening, but it happened on our season. So that's why in my mind, it's a non-elimination leg. Just no penalty.
Actually, you should be an attorney because what you said was really good. You just changed my mind because I now remember Annalie did say you have this much money for this leg of the race. So that leads me to believe it's a new leg of the race. And each leg of the race, someone's eliminated or it's a non-elimination.
Right.
So that is true. They should have probably been eliminated.
I'm not gonna lie. I know that they don't get a prize because they got to keep on racing, but Annalie and her dad should have gotten something.
But see, same thing, Michelle. In some seasons with Keep On Racing, sometimes teams do get a prize. So it's like it's so give or take.
No, but I'm saying not like a prize, but okay, you got here first, even if it's Keep On Racing, which doesn't mean you're first.
Maybe they should get like
you get 5 minutes. I don't know. People, the other teams have to wait in the mat an extra 10 minutes or something.
That's a good point.
Good point.
Some sort of advantage, or Liam and Jeremy should maybe get some type of penalty because yes, it's a Keep On Racing leg. Sure, that's probably the difference. Is it's called a Keep On Racing, not a non-elimination, but they still should have something that kind of like makes them have to work even harder to like get ahead of the race again. Yeah. I don't know. I love them. I'm not saying I wanted them eliminated. I'm just saying in race terms, I feel like that's the argument. They should have been eliminated.
What were the challenges for non-eliminated? What are those called?
The speed bumps.
Yeah.
Speed bumps. They should have had something. Here's the deal. The race reinvents itself every single season. They add new things.
That's why we love the show.
They can do whatever they want. I'm entertained. I'm loving it.
If
they want to keep teams on, great.
We should, next time we go out to dinner with Elise, we should ask her what this is all about. Because now
could you define it? Define it for us.
Elise, we have 10 notes from the whole entire show that we need.
let me just call them. Hey, Bert. Hey, I don't call Bertram. It's Bert.
Hey, Birdie.
It also says the first leg of season 18, which was the unfinished business season.
Such a good one.
The first leg ended with the no rest leg, aka Keep On Racing. And the first team to arrive was Gary and Mallory, and they still received an express pass from Phil at the finish of that leg.
But that was announced at the beginning of the episode. That was not like a surprise.
They didn't know it was Keep On Racing. They just knew that the express pass was available.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, do whatever they want. If they want.
No, I know. Totally.
So, I'm going to say this just because for our season, the first episode was a Keep On Racing. But to me, part of why I think it was the safety thing. I think they wanted us out of
Tobago.
Out of the country quickly. And so we immediately went to the airport and flew. I think that's why they called it a Keep On Racing, so that we didn't. That's neither here nor there. So I think there's so many reasons. And I maybe they should have been eliminated. Maybe they shouldn't. To me, the bigger thing was the fact that they didn't know they were last.
That they were what?
They didn't know they were last.
Oh.
They were like, we're so good. We're just thriving today. And then they were like, you're last. And they were like, what?
No, Phil was like, you're dead last.
Dead last.
But you know what, Will? That's actually a really good point, because I wonder if logistically to keep going the race the way that they had it planned, they could not break down for 24, 48 hours. They needed to keep going to get on the next flight, to get to the next destination, to keep it moving properly. So I wonder if that's why. Plus, what was so interesting is the people that did really well this were shocked, and the people that did really bad were shocked. It was like everyone was shocked.
Even Morgan and Lena were shocked that they weren't higher than 6. They were like, what?
Well, I mean, they misused that.
I have a question. So booking hotels and everything on your season, was that like a part of the race?
No,
they booked all the hotels.
Yeah. They put you in the hotels, but there were so many times where you weren't in a hotel. Like you would sleep. We slept in the airport multiple times. We slept in, I think, a couple airports. We slept in the cave.
Our leg start times would be like 1 a.m, and like places wouldn't open until 6. So then you're just kind of walking around. Like we went to a Holiday Inn and chilled in the lobby. Like
in Paris.
What was crazy about our leg of the race is the first the first place we stayed was a creepy anime sex place. And then the second, the first couple hotels, I was like, oh my God, we're gonna be staying in fucking dumps. And then the third place was like a palace.
Yeah.
And every place after that was so nice. Like
Yeah.
one of the places I had a jacuzzi in the middle of the room, like plushy robes. Yeah, it was crazy. Really nice.
Wow.
Well, I loved this convo. It was very insightful. I'm excited that all the teams are still in. I'm not saying I'm mad that no one was eliminated. I was just curious what everyone thought.
Sure.
But I just, with how chaotic this episode was, and on top of that, the sleep deprivation, and now it's a keep on racing, I can only imagine that next week's episode is going to deliver some quality entertainment and drama. So I'm very excited.
Yes.
On the next week's episode of Amazing Race, teams continue racing in Vietnam and face the hustle and bustle of a congested Vietnamese market where they must properly set up a fish stand and deliver mattresses to a local hotel. So I'm very excited for next week's episode. Anyone have predictions as to who might get eliminated next week?
If I'm going to be honest, I think it might stay relatively similar in order from this Keep on Racing. I think people will only shift maybe 1-2 max places. I think the spread of time is the benefit for these teams. If you were 15 minutes ahead of anybody, like that's going to be all the time you need to kind of bust through some of these challenges. So I don't foresee it changing a lot. So I'm nervous for the bottom 3 teams, which are what? Jeremy and Liam, Jocelyn and Victor. And who was the other one?
Yeah.
It was Andrea and Melina.
Yeah, those are the 3 teams that I'm worried about.
I think that's fair.
I think we all should make proper predictions. I think we each pick one team.
I will choose, given how stressed and crazy, I think Liam and Jeremy may stay in last, just because them being shocked that they're in last, it may just throw them off their game and they just kind of like falter the rest of the Vietnam leg.
Yeah.
I actually think it might be Jocelyn and Victor because the way they were ending, I know, I hate to say it, the way they were so stressed and they looked tired and they were already having like small little fights with each other. I don't think you don't have a night to talk about it in the hotel and to recover and to communicate. To really change your viewpoint. And so it's really hard to change your view. I think the boys, Liam and Jeremy, they know they're in last and they're young. I feel like that's going to give them the motivation to push through in the next episode.
Yeah, I agree with Michelle. I think that's a very accurate prediction in terms of like, Liam and Jeremy, I think it's going to light a fire under their butt now, knowing that they were last, not knowing initially. They're going to be proactive and productive with that information. We're seeing how quickly Jocelyn felt like she was kind of like feeling defeated at that detour. I mean, we already saw how frustrated Lena looked at the roadblock. I'm sure she's probably not the only team frustrated. I think a lot of teams might be frustrated at that roadblock. And so I just think with the sleep deprivation, I'm worried about Jocelyn and Victor actually being eliminated too.
I think it's going to be someone random. I feel like Joel or something, which I don't want. I don't want that. I think like maybe Joel and Garrett. I just think it's going to be kind of random, or it's going to be Morgan and Lena. I think seeing them cry, which I mean, that doesn't mean that they're gonna, but I think that they misuse the express pass and it's gonna come back and bite them in the ass, and that they're gonna be thinking about that. So maybe, that's what I'm gonna say.
Okay. I hope not. I hope not, because then people who are online, they can be like, we didn't waste our express pass because we're still in it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I don't want anybody to go. I like all of them. I think they're all so fun.
I don't know. Yeah, that's the hard thing is like when you like them all, I'm like, I don't want anybody to go home.
Yeah. The casting this season was incredible. I love a lot of the teams.
And I think that's also because we get 90 minutes. I think we get to see relationships way more, which I remember somebody did like a breakdown of time that for our premiere, and I want to say each team, the max time they got on screen talking was like maybe a minute or 45 seconds. Just because of how you can't put everybody in an episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I love everybody. I love the chaos. I love
Will,
it.
you're so right. When we first started our season, nobody knew who we were for
Yeah.
probably like 3 or 4 episodes.
Bullshit.
Well,
Oh
'cause-
my God. stop.
Yes,
I love
nobody
you guys
knew.
from the beginning.
No.
Stop it. Bullshit.
No,
bullshit,
that's just
bullshit.
that. I think with the hour episodes, that's the formula. Is if you're
Mhm.
not first or if you're not last, anyone in the middle doesn't
You
get
don't
much
get
of a minute
time.
because
Yeah.
they're not narrating the next steps of the tasks, the routes, whatever. So I think being in the middle of the pack on an hour-long episode, you're just not really going to get much screen time.
Yeah.
Well, like Quentin, for example, I remember when we were recapping your season, Michelle, like we didn't see Quentin's personality until basically he was eliminated, and he's such a great personality. But I do feel like you and Luis, we saw from the beginning. Well, in my perspective, I mean, I loved you both.
Thank you. But I think you should rewatch. It's what James was saying. Since it's so short,
What
we
is?
didn't really get a lot of airtime. We really didn't. So I think I mean, you guys kind of are really into the race, but people who are just watching the show, they didn't know who we were at all. So when we started to get really good, they were asking, "Who are these people?" And then
where they come from.
Aubrey and David are like similar team to us. So she was a dancer.
Yeah.
David was her partner. David has the nice hair. Louis has the nice hair. So I think they had like confused us a few times with them.
Yeah. I think for this season too, with the first 2 episodes, there wasn't travel related a piece of the episode. So that eliminated that segment of the episode, which gave to like character development, which I think helped a lot in the first 2. And now that we see airport drama, I already know Steve and Annalie. I know Todd and Ashley. I know all these teams, even though they're in the middle. I've seen them in the previous episodes because of the amount of time we got on with them on our screens.
I'm loving the hour and a half.
Me too.
Yes.
And I think this was the best
jealous.
use of the hour and a half with the travel, the route info where they with the fruit, and then a detour. I think they could have thrown in a roadblock in there just for like fun, but I loved how fast paced it was the whole hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's why I can't wait for next week. I feel like it's going to be very dramatic. Well, Michelle and Laura, thanks for joining us on our recap today. Where can they find you all on social media?
My social media is Michelle Burgos Colon. I gotta fully change my name to Michelle Colon, but for now it's Michelle Burgos Colon.
And I'm LP Bonet.
Yes, LP Bonet. Well, we'll be back next week, of course, with another recap. And until then, we hope you all have a great week. Bye, everyone.
Bye, babies. I love you.